The fluorescent lights hummed above me, a thin, sickly buzz that filled the silence. It was 2:37 a.m., the dead hour of the night shift, when the highway outside lay empty and the world felt hollow. I was half asleep behind the counter, the coffee machine gurgling its last drops, when it came, a single sharp sound against the glass front door. I froze. The lot was empty. No headlights, no footsteps, nothing but the pale glow of the pumps swaying in the breeze. Then it came again, but this time, it wasn't from the door. It came from inside. From behind me, I turned slowly. The cooler doors lined the far wall, their glass fogged with condensation. One of them shuddered as if a hand had pressed against it from the inside. My mouth went dry. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. "Who's there?" I whispered. My voice cracked against the silence. The cooler door rattled once more, then stilled. For a moment, the store was utterly still. Then the lights flickered overhead, buzzing louder, dimming, swelling. I looked back at the security monitors. A blur crossed one of the cameras. Something tall, hunched, too quick for the lens. It vanished near the dumpsters at the far corner of the lot. And then, from somewhere unseen, came a voice, low, muffled, almost inside my head. "Let me in." The voice lingered long after it had gone quiet, threading through the store like smoke. I stood behind the counter, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it. The hum of the fluorescent steadied again. The coolers sat still, and the highway outside stretched into darkness. Just another night. That's all it was. I poured myself another coffee, bitter, burnt, the kind that tasted like plastic, but I needed it. Nights like this, with hours of nothingness. The caffeine was the only thing that kept me from sinking too deep into thought. The gas station sat in the middle of nowhere, a single island of light in a desert of asphalt and dust. No houses for miles, no open diners, just 18-wheelers groaning past, the occasional drunk heading home, and me stuck on the graveyard shift. I told myself the knock was a prank. Maybe some trucker with nothing better to do. Maybe the wind rattling the glass. There were 1,000 excuses, each one thinner than the last. Still, my eyes kept drifting to the cooler doors, waiting for them to tremble again. The clock read 2:45, longest night of my life. And it wasn't even halfway over. The bell above the door jingled, startling me so bad I spilled coffee down my sleeve. A man came in, tall, rough, with road dust coating his jacket. His eyes were red, his face sunken, the look of someone who'd been driving too long. He didn't browse, didn't look around. "Just grabbed a pack of smokes and set them on the counter. You shouldn't be here after dark," he muttered. His voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. I tried to smile. "Yeah, well, somebody's got to sell gas." He didn't laugh. He didn't even look at me. He paid in crumpled bills, lit one of the cigarettes right there in front of the glass doors, and walked out without another word. The smell of smoke lingered as I rang up his sale. But by the time I glanced outside, he was gone. No headlights pulling away. No truck idling. Just emptiness. I stared at the pumps. One of them flickered, the numbers blinking as though it were running. But there was no car there. No one had swiped a card. The machine clicked. Stopped. Reset. I swallowed hard, set my coffee aside, and told myself I'd check the cameras. Just to ease my mind. The monitors sat in a dusty corner, old black and white feeds that barely covered half the lot. Grainy snow skated across the screens, distorting the images. But one camera, the one facing the dumpsters, froze me in place. There was someone standing there, not moving, not smoking, just standing, hunched, face hidden in shadow. I leaned closer, my heartbeat thudding so loud it drowned out the fluorescent hum. The figure shifted, not toward the lens, not away. Just closer to the blind spot, that corner where the camera didn't reach. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, looked again. The figure was gone. The screen showed only dumpsters and cracked pavement. For a moment I thought about locking the door. Calling someone, but who? The sheriff's office was half an hour away, and all they'd tell me was that people wander in the night. Drifters, junkies, shadows. Still, I couldn't shake the sound. That first knock, that voice, "Let me in." I turned back toward the store, forcing myself to keep moving, to keep breathing. It was better when I was moving, better when I wasn't thinking too much. But the silence had grown heavier, oppressive. The coolers hummed softly, condensation dripping down the glass. Shelves stood perfectly still, but the aisles felt longer somehow, stretched into shadow. I grabbed the mop and bucket, telling myself I'd clean up, keep busy. My manager always said a clean store was a safe store. But as I dragged the mop across the tiles, I realized something. There were wet footprints leading from the front door, bare feet. They crossed the tiles, one after another, until they stopped halfway down an aisle. Just stopped, as though the person had vanished mid-step. The mop handle slipped from my hands and clattered on the floor. The sound echoed far too loud in the emptiness. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over the bucket, and tried to laugh it off. Maybe they were old prints. Maybe water leaked in. But the tile was dry everywhere else, and the prints were fresh, glistening. I crouched, heart in my throat. The floor was slick, wet to the touch, and cold. Colder than it should have been. The hairs rose along the back of my neck. I turned. Slowly toward the coolers. A single door had fogged over more than the rest. Condensation running down the inside of the glass like rain. And behind it, barely visible through the frost, was a shape. A hand. Pressed flat against the glass, fingers spread, motionless. My breath hitched. I stumbled back, fumbling for the counter, nearly knocking over a rack of chips. When I looked again, the hand was gone. The glass was clear, empty. The silence pressed down so hard it felt like a weight on my chest. And then, faintly, almost gentle, came the sound. Knock, 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 from the inside of the cooler. The sound rattled the cooler glass, sharp and deliberate. Knock, knock, knock. I stood frozen, mop handle in my hands like a weapon, staring at the fogged door. "Who's there?" I managed, my voice breaking in the silence. No answer. The cooler lights flickered inside, pale fluorescence behind stacks of soda bottles. The glass clouded further, as if someone's breath fogged it from the other side. My heart slammed against my ribs. I stepped back, eyes darting to the monitors. The camera angle on the coolers was grainy, static, chewing the corner of the feed, but I could see the doors, empty, nothing inside. Still, the knocking continued. Slower now. Knock, knock. From another door, I spun. The sound had shifted to the far end, near the freezer where we kept the ice cream. Then to the candy aisle. Then the stockroom door, always just out of reach. The knocking moved like it was circling me. I dropped the mop and bolted for the counter, fumbling at the drawer where I knew the flashlight was. My hands shook too much to click it on. The store fell utterly quiet, and then, from the intercom above me, came a hiss of static. The old speaker hadn't worked in years, but now it crackled alive, spitting out a voice like broken glass. "Let me in." The flashlight clattered from my hands. I ripped the intercom plug from the wall, the hiss cutting off instantly. For a long moment, all I could hear was my own breath. Then faintly, the bell above the door jingled. I turned. No one had come in. The glass door was locked. But on the floor just inside, glistening faintly in the fluorescent light, was a wet footprint, bare, human, facing me. I didn't last 5 more minutes before I called the only person I could think of, Jimmy, the guy who worked the day shift. He picked up after 2 rings, groggy and annoyed. "You locked yourself out again?" he muttered. "No," I whispered, eyes darting around the aisles. "There's someone here, or something." Keeps knocking, silence on the other end. "Then, you heard it, didn't you?" My stomach dropped. "What?" he sighed. His voice softened. "I told them not to put you on nights." "What the hell are you talking about?" "Listen to me." His voice sharpened. "Don't answer it. Whatever it does, wherever it knocks, you ignore it. Do you understand?" I swallowed, sweat running down my neck. "Why, what is it?" But he hung up before answering. The line clicked dead, leaving me with the buzzing lights. My hands shook as I set the phone down. My reflection in the glass counter looked pale, drawn, eyes wide like a cornered animal. The bell above the door jingled again. This time, it wasn't empty. An old man shuffled in, wiry frame, hunched shoulders, wearing a dusty coat that looked older than me. His eyes were pale, almost clouded, but sharp. "Evening," he rasped, voice gravelly. He didn't look at me as he shuffled past the counter, straight toward the coolers. I wanted to tell him the store was closed, that he shouldn't be here. But the words stuck in my throat. He stood in front of the fogged glass, staring at it like it was a window. His breath fogged in the air, though the store wasn't that cold. "Don't look too long," he muttered. I blinked. "What?" "The glass," he said, finally turning toward me. His face was a roadmap of wrinkles, eyes gleaming with something between pity and warning. "It looks back." Before I could reply, he grabbed a six-pack from the cooler and limped to the counter. His hands trembled as he laid down a crumpled bill. "You'll hear it again," he whispered. "When you do, don't listen. Don't speak. Don't answer." I tried to steady my voice. "What happens if I do?" He looked at me, eyes glassy with fear. "Then it gets in." The bell jingled as he left. By the time I reached the door, the lot was empty. No car, no footsteps. Just silence. Behind me, the cooler glass rattled with another knock. The old man's words clung to me like smoke. "Don't look too long. It looks back." I sat behind the counter, staring at the monitors. Static crawled across the screens, warping the empty lot. The camera on the dumpsters flickered, and for a fraction of a second, I thought I saw him again, the figure from earlier, hunched and waiting. But when I leaned closer, it wasn't a man. The screen glitched, and I saw myself, standing by the dumpsters, knocking on the metal lid. The feed snapped back to normal. I shoved the monitors away, nearly spilling the coffee I hadn't touched. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. There had to be an explanation. There had to be. I pulled out the old logbook we kept under the counter, a battered notebook full of shift notes, inventory counts, weird customers, drunks to ban, pump malfunctions. I flipped through page after page, desperate for anything that could anchor me. Halfway back, the writing changed. Scribbles, jagged scrawls, pages torn out. One entry stopped me cold. 02 a.m. Knocking won't stop. Came from the bathroom this time. "Don't answer. Don't." The rest of the page was gouged out by pen strokes so violent they tore the paper. Another entry, 2 weeks later. Saw myself outside again. "Not going out there. Not tonight." He waits at the glass. I snapped the book shut, heart hammering. This wasn't just me. Others had heard it. Others had seen it. The phone behind the counter rang, shattering the silence. I nearly jumped out of my skin, hands trembling. I picked up, static on the other end. Then a voice. Low, calm, familiar. My own voice. "You already let me in." I slammed the receiver down, and from the back hallway, leading to the employee bathroom, came a soft, deliberate sound. Knock, knock, knock. The knocking grew louder, echoing down the narrow hallway. I gripped the flashlight in both hands, forcing myself forward. The bathroom door stood shut. A shadow stretched beneath it, thin, wavering, as if someone were pacing inside. I reached for the knob. Stopped. The old man's warning rang in my ears. "Don't answer it." I took a step back. My pulse thudded in my ears. Then the door rattled, violent, hinges groaning. The knocking became pounding, fists slamming from the inside. "Hey!" I shouted, my voice cracking. "Who's in there?" The pounding stopped. Silence pressed down on me. I swallowed, reached for the knob again. My hand brushed cold metal, colder than ice, colder than anything natural. My skin burned from the chill. I pulled back, shaking. The intercom hissed again. A child's voice this time, soft, pleading. "It's cold. Let me out." I stumbled away, backing into the aisles. The candy shelves rattled, bags falling one by one, knocking spread everywhere at once. The cooler doors, the bathroom, the stockroom, the front glass. A chorus of fists beating in rhythm, shaking the store like a heartbeat. Knock, knock, knock. I covered my ears. It didn't help. The sound was inside my skull, rattling through bone. "Stop!" I screamed. The sound ceased. Utter silence. I lowered my hands slowly. The aisles stretched longer than they should have. Rows of snacks extending into darkness, impossibly deep. The humming of the lights shifted, low and warbling, like a tape slowed to half speed. I blinked hard. My breath fogged in the air. At the far end of the aisle, between flickering lights, stood a figure. Tall, hunched, head tilted at an unnatural angle. It raised its hand. Slowly. Pressed its palm flat against the glass door of the cooler beside it. Even across the distance, I saw the fingers spread, then, in perfect sync, the cooler beside me fogged. A hand pressed from the inside. My chest tightened. The old man's words returned, clear as if whispered in my ear. Don't look too long, but I couldn't stop staring. The hand inside the glass curled its fingers. Tapping once, knock. The one across the aisle did the same, knock, and from the bathroom door, a third answered, knock. The rhythm spread again. Encircling me, my legs gave way, and I fell to my knees. Clutching my head, the intercom hissed. A voice spilled out, jagged and distorted. Not mine this time. Not anyone's. You can't keep me out. I'm already here. The store lights flickered, buzzing harder than ever, then died. Darkness swallowed everything. For a moment, the only light came from the faint red glow of the exit signs above the doors. The hum of the fluorescents gave way to silence so heavy it pressed against my skull. Then the knocking started again, not from one place, from everywhere. Knock, knock, knock. The coolers shook. The bathroom door rattled. The stockroom echoed with hollow thuds. Even the glass of the front door trembled, each impact perfectly timed, like a pulse. I stumbled behind the counter, fumbling for the flashlight. My hand shook too hard to switch it on. The monitors flared alive, bathing the store in a sickly glow. The screens crackled with static, but shapes moved in them, shadows darting between aisles, figures pressing their faces against the camera lens. One monitor froze on the lot outside. I leaned closer. Breath caught in my throat. Every pump was occupied. Figures stood at each one, tall and still, their faces blurred in the static. No headlights, no engines running, just silhouettes filling the gas station, unmoving. They all turned their heads toward the store at once, and then, in perfect unison, they raised their hands. Knock. The front door shuddered so hard the glass spiderwebbed. I dropped the flashlight, clutched the counter for balance. The air itself vibrated, every surface trembling with the rhythm. Through the static hiss, a whisper slithered into the intercom. You already opened the door. I backed away from the counter, heart pounding. The aisles had changed again, longer, darker, endless rows of junk food stretching farther than they should. The shelves leaned in on me, casting shadows that didn't match their shapes, and then I saw movement. At the end of the aisle stood Mead, same uniform, same tired face, except the eyes. The eyes were hollow, black pits that swallowed light. He lifted his hand and pressed it against the glass of a cooler. I froze. He smiled. My double began to knock, slowly, deliberately, knock. The sound echoed inside my skull, louder than it should have been. I stumbled back, slamming into a rack of chips. Bags spilled across the floor, crunching beneath my shoes. The intercom hissed, and my own voice spilled out. Calm, measured, wrong. Stop running. You're only hurting yourself. I covered my ears, but it didn't help. The voice was inside, reverberating through bone and blood. I sprinted down the aisle, past shelves that seemed to stretch forever. Every turn led back to the same row. Every corner revealed the same cooler door, and every time my reflection was there, knocking, waiting. At one point, I slammed into the bathroom door. I twisted the knob in panic. It opened, but inside wasn't the bathroom. It was the lot outside. Dozens of figures stood at the pumps, all facing me. All perfectly still, my reflection stood among them. He tilted his head, lips curling into a grin. "Let me in," he said. But his lips didn't move. The words came from mine. The door slammed shut before I could react, nearly crushing my hand. I staggered back into the aisle, gasping. The store had warped again. Shelves bent at impossible angles, lights flickered like distant lightning, and every reflective surface showed me not as I was, but as I would be, empty, hollow. Knock. Knock, knock. The knocks grew faster, louder, every wall, every door, every inch of glass hammered in rhythm, until it was no longer knocking but a single endless roar like a heartbeat shaking the building apart. I clutched my head, dropped to my knees. My vision blurred. Through the thunder, a whisper slid into the cracks of my mind. "You can't keep me out. You never could." The monitors sparked and flared. Every screen showed me, dozens of me, scattered across aisles, standing at the pumps, crouched in the stockroom, each one knocking in time. I staggered to the front door, slamming my hands against the glass. The lot outside rippled, unreal. The figures turned all at once. Each one was me, every face mine. They all raised their hands. Knock. The glass exploded inward. Shards rained across the tiles. I threw up my arms, but when I looked, the floor was clear. No glass, no shatter, just silence. And then I realized I was standing outside. The gas station loomed in front of me, lights buzzing weakly. Inside, through the front window, I saw myself at the counter, head bowed, motionless. I stumbled back, heart seizing in my chest. The figure inside lifted its head, it smiled at me, and then it raised its hand. Knock. This time, it wasn't against glass. It was against the inside of my skull. I screamed, falling to my knees, clutching my head. The sound reverberated through bone, through blood, through thought. The last thing I heard before everything went black was my own voice, whispering, "I told you not to answer." I woke to the sound of birds. The silence was so complete it startled me. No hum, no knocking, no whispering in the walls. Just birdsong drifting on a pale morning breeze. I was slumped against the counter. My neck ached. My uniform clung to my skin with cold sweat. The monitors above me were dark, black screens reflecting nothing but my haggard face. I stood slowly, legs trembling. The store looked normal. Too normal. The shelves were back in place. Neat rows of chips, candy, bottled drinks. The cooler doors were spotless. No cracks, no handprints, no warped reflections. The front door glass was intact. Even the buzzing of the fluorescents had softened into something almost bearable. I half expected the lot to still be filled with motionless figures. But when I stepped to the window, sunlight poured across the asphalt. Empty pumps, no cars, no shadows, just another quiet morning at a nowhere gas station. I exhaled hard, pressing my forehead against the cool glass. It was over. Had to be. But the longer I stood there, the more wrong the air felt. The birdsong didn't fade. It didn't change pitch or distance. The same three notes, repeating endlessly, like a recording. I backed away, eyes darting around the store. Everything was in place. Two in place. Every shelf stocked exactly. Every item aligned perfectly, not a single wrapper or crooked bottle. The floor shone as if it had just been mopped. I couldn't remember the last time it had ever looked this clean. Or maybe, I couldn't remember anything at all. When had I started this shift? What day was it? Was anyone supposed to relieve me? I clutched my head, struggling to drag up details. Nothing came. Only the knocking, the whispers, the reflection. A ringing phone cut through the haze. I turned. The landline on the counter blinked with a red light. I lifted the receiver, heart hammering. "Hello?" A pause. Then, softly, my own voice answered. "Shift's over." The line went dead. I don't remember walking out. One moment I was holding the receiver. The next I was outside, standing in the lot beneath the washed-out sky. The gas station looked the same as always. Bland, boxy, humming faintly in the sunlight. A car pulled in at last, a dusty sedan with a family inside. They didn't notice me. The father stepped out, yawning, grabbing the pump. His kids pressed their faces to the window, watching the convenience store with sleepy curiosity. I raised a hand to wave. None of them looked at me, not even the father, who walked right past, heading for the door. He brushed my shoulder and didn't feel a thing. I froze, arms still raised. He pulled open the glass door, the bell chimed, and I caught a glimpse inside. There was someone behind the counter, someone in my uniform. Head bowed, still as stone. The father cleared his throat. The figure lifted its head, slowly, and smiled. My knees buckled. The air stung in my lungs like smoke. I stumbled backward, staring through the glass. It was me, but not tired, not broken. Perfectly calm, eyes sharp, smile practiced. Exactly the version of me I'd always given customers. Polite, forgettable, empty. The father handed him cash. My double rang it up, movement smooth, precise, as if nothing had ever happened, as if he'd always been here. The bell chimed again. A woman entered. She passed me on the step, eyes sliding over me like I wasn't even there. I pressed my hands against the glass. They left no marks. Inside, my reflection glanced up, meeting my stare through the window. He raised his hand slowly, fingers curling. Palm flat, knock. The sound didn't come from the glass. It came from inside my skull, sharp, final. And when I staggered back, gasping, the sunlight dimmed, like someone had pulled a veil across the sky. The lot emptied. The family, the sedan, the customers, gone. The pumps stood silent. The glass doors gleamed. The gas station hummed, eternal, unchanging. And inside, behind the counter, my reflection stood, patient, waiting. I turned to run. The horizon stretched endless in every direction. Flat road, flat fields, no end. And behind me, always behind me, the hum followed. The bird song looped, and, faint but steady, the knocking began again.